Money doesn't sleep, and that city, towering skyscrapers, neon veins, endless hum of ambition, sure thought it could. Until the night the impossible happened. $500 million gone, vanished, pulled out of a vault nobody thought could be touched. And no one saw a thing. Not the cameras, not the guards, not even the meticulous security systems designed over decades to prevent exactly this. They weren't just robbing a bank, they were rewriting the rules of what humans thought was possible. It started like any other night. Rain-slick streets reflected the glow of advertisements promising dreams that few could afford. Inside the bank's fortress-like headquarters, a night janitor moved quietly, unaware that the small, mundane steps he took would later become a breadcrumb trail for a story the world couldn't forget. He unlocked doors, swept floors, and checked the quiet hum of computers humming in the background. Ordinary, routine, safe. But even in routine, the first threads of the heist were already weaving themselves into the night. Hours before the vault opened, or rather before it should have, someone else was moving through those same halls. Shadows, figures dressed in black, gliding silently. There was a rhythm to their movement, a choreography honed through months, maybe years of planning. Every camera angle accounted for, every guard's patrol memorized, every alarm disabled with precision that would make a surgeon jealous. They were ghosts, but ghosts with a purpose, and that purpose was audacious beyond comprehension. By the time the first alarm should have blared, it didn't. The night was still. The city above slept, oblivious to the breach below. $500 million sat in that vault, and by morning it was gone. Vanished. No fingerprints, no video, no physical trace of human presence. Only empty shelves and the echo of what had been. When news broke, the world paused. Headlines screamed impossible numbers. Experts shook their heads. "It's not feasible," said a security consultant with decades in the field. "There's no way anyone could pull off something like this without leaving a single trace." But the evidence, or lack thereof, told a different story. Whoever had done it didn't just steal money. They stole belief in the unbreakable. Behind the numbers, though, was human chaos. The janitor, replaying the night in his head, asking himself if a subtle shift in his routine had unwittingly aided the crew. The night manager, who had checked the vault one last time before leaving, replaying every detail over and over in insomnia-fueled loops. And the investigators, working 24/7 in a haze of coffee and frustration, staring at empty screens, empty vaults, and a million unanswered questions. They were chasing shadows that didn't exist, clues that led nowhere, and logic that had been outsmarted. Days turned into weeks, and the heist became legend. Every lead, every minor anomaly in bank records was combed over with microscopic attention. Investigators traced wires, interviewed employees, and even looked at the backgrounds of vendors with obsessive scrutiny. Nothing. The trail was colder than ice in Siberia. And yet the public couldn't look away. People speculated endlessly. Insiders? Professional criminals? Rogue government agents? Nobody could pin it down. And then, months later, the twist. Money began to reappear in the most unexpected places. Small charities received donations large enough to make their auditors pause. Offshore accounts were flagged with transfers so subtle they almost seemed accidental. A tech startup in the city, previously unknown, suddenly had funding for research far beyond its apparent capacity. Each discovery was a breadcrumb, each breadcrumb a tease that suggested a plan far more complex than a simple robbery. Whoever had pulled it off was playing a long game, a game that blurred the line between crime and performance art. Experts started theorizing. Some believed it was a single mastermind, a genius whose understanding of human psychology and institutional weakness allowed them to manipulate people and systems alike. Others argued it was a team, each member with their own specialty, moving in perfect synchrony, blending expertise in technology, finance, and human behavior. The truth? Nobody knew, and that ambiguity, that uncertainty, only heightened the story's allure. But beyond the headlines and expert analyses were the human stories, the intimate, often overlooked lives intersecting with this heist. There was Clara, the bank teller who had unknowingly helped the crew by simply following protocol. Every day after the heist, she stared at the closed vault door, imagining what could have been happening in the shadows. There was Marco, a security guard whose nightly rounds had been meticulously planned out, yet even his vigilance couldn't catch what he never expected. Their lives had been altered not by crime, but by proximity to genius, audacity, and the limits of human foresight. And still, the trail twisted. Each piece of money that reappeared brought more questions. Was the redistribution intentional, a statement on wealth and power? Or was it a practical necessity, moving funds to avoid suspicion? Analysts debated, theorists blogged, and conspiracy forums buzzed with speculation. Yet for every answer proposed, 10 new questions arose, as if the heist itself was designed not just to steal, but to provoke thought, to unsettle, and to linger in the collective consciousness. The psychological toll was immense. For the investigators, sleepless nights and obsessive analyses became normal. For the public, the heist became a reflection of larger truths, that money, power, and human ingenuity are far more fluid than society admits. And for the perpetrators, whoever they were, the heist represented freedom, not just financial, but intellectual. They had rewritten the rules, reminding the world that no system is infallible. Yet even in its audacity, the story is deeply human. It's about ambition, risk, and the thin line separating ordinary life from extraordinary action. It's about the quiet terror of realizing that the world you rely on is not as stable as you think. It's about fascination with brilliance that flirts with immorality, and the lingering question, what would you risk if you could pull off the impossible? And in the final act of this story, the $500 million, though dispersed, becomes almost secondary. The true heist was not of money. It was of belief, of control, of certainty. By vanishing without a trace, the crew, or the individual, left a scar not on a ledger, but on the collective psyche. They demonstrated the audacity of human imagination, the fragility of systems we take for granted, and the enduring allure of the unknown. In the quiet aftermath, the city sleeps again. Neon lights reflect in puddles, streets hum with cars and footsteps, and life goes on. Yet somewhere in that rhythm, the echoes of that night remain. The $500 million may have vanished, but the story, the tension, the mystery, the human drama lingers. It reminds us that even in a world dominated by rules, order, and surveillance, audacity can carve a space for the extraordinary, and that sometimes the greatest heist isn't just about what's stolen, it's about what the act reveals about us all.